Hi, folks. Welcome. Um, yeah, good to be with you. Uh, um, I guess we meditate. So yeah, let's find a posture that balances relaxation, alertness. If you're tired, err on the alert side. If you're ramped up, err on the relaxed side. And yeah, just gently find your way into Dharma posture, your body, but also your Dharma heart. So just see if there's something especially entangling left over from the day or the week, the year. Just appreciate what that is. Maybe you even give it a moment to think through, so long as you don't get more deeply entangled. Maybe it feels important to just feel the presence of whatever's left over as the fingerprint it leaves in your emotional body. Just give your blessing to those, that affective arousal. Give your blessing to it. We give our blessing to everything so we can put it all down. And maybe you really notice the end of few exhalations. Maybe you listen out for the most faint distant sound in your soundscape. Maybe you don't even know if you're hearing a sound or silence. So we look to see what's a skillful way of attending to vitalize the mind, tranquilize our body. Greed is tension. Hatred, aversion is tension. Self is tension. Duality is tension. Any holding on at all is tension. And so we relax. You can't exactly relax through more willfulness. We relax the way we exhale. There's a certain measure of faith required to relinquish control. to stop trying to engineer, to stop trying to solve the riddle of our life, of this moment. Instead, to be softened by the moment. Don't look for any foothold in samsara. Just breathing into the space called me, mine, relaxing. When we command ourselves to relax, it's just a kind of reiteration of the clinging. The way we fall asleep is a kind of relinquishment of the willfulness. Maybe it's kind of the same for falling awake. your ground is just openness. So thanks, folks. I put a link in there, the chat, for any questions. I thought next week maybe respond to a question or two. So that's there. It's anonymous if you wish to do that. Okay, so yeah, a few weeks ago, I was leading a sitting group out of town, and a dear friend, colleague happened to be in the same place at the same time, and she came to the class, and um, afterwards we were talking about, just saying hi and talking, and and I said something like. Yeah, during the meditation instructions, I actually teared up a little bit. And she was just like, Matthew, you always cry. And then, and then on Sunday, I was finishing an online retreat, teaching, crying. I was like, oh my God, I'm a crier. I cry. I cry when I teach. What is the deal? you know? And so I thought to give a talk about crying, the kind of different species of tears, Dharma tears, and I've interrogated it myself. I've wondered, like what are these? I didn't cry today, not yet. Stay strong. I didn't, what what are these tears about? Like, are they appropriate? Like, and I've asked the question, like, okay, are they a kind of over disclosure? Are my tears a kind of burden in any way for others, or the kind of messiness that others must contend with? Are my tears somehow manipulative? A kind of unconscious attempt to manipulate your emotions to do something to your emotional world? Am I displacing, something from my own private suffering, and somehow the emotion in the teacher seat is kind of a kind of placeholder for other feelings that are kind of alien to me in some way? And obviously I can't be sure, but I don't think it's any of that, actually. Beckett said, my words are my tears. And I've read some research on crying, the kind of the functions and the triggers of tears that varies a lot, and they're generally, like, crying are generally associated with unpleasant catalysts, but joy triggers tears too, as we know. And tears have intrapsychic and also interpersonal effects, right? So on the intrapsychic side, many people report like some kind of cathartic relief from crying. The tears are somehow like a kind of resolution of emotional disequilibrium. And there's some buildup of something, some activation, arousal state. We're tense. Then the process of crying is de-escalating that arousal. I almost never, you know, cried as a, I obviously as a child, but like once I got a little bit older, I didn't cry as an adolescent or young adult or anything, and I still never cry anything about anything kind of like narrowly in my life generally. Um, Infants cry, of course, like the interpersonal needs are so obvious there, a kind of signal, and the tears announce a need. And as adults, there may be interpersonal functions of tears too, right? We we People cry for many reasons, but apparently one of the main reasons that people cry is a sense of helplessness. The researcher said, like, the inability to act behaviorally may be a common element of a whole range of different tears. And we can see that sometimes. Sometimes our tears are a kind of plea, like, I can't do this, I need you. And maybe sometimes our tears are just they are kind of like soothing our sense of, soothing us in the kind of face of powerlessness. I barely cried, but then I started practicing Dharma, you know, and especially when I would do heart practice, metta, compassion, it was like a lot of tears, a lot of tears. I heard some teachers say, I don't know who, I don't remember, but practice doesn't truly begin until you cry deeply. And there were a lot of threads kind of bound up in those early tears of some years, really. And looking back, I feel like, oh yeah, it was some way in which I was sort of like grieving the suffering of my past, feeling the suffering of anger, of the aversion that had really defined my life. Just feeling that. I was grieving the First Noble Truth in a way. It's like the enormity of suffering, the ungovernable quality of it. And it's like, oh yeah, how long might it take to truly comprehend dukkha? You know, long time, a lot of grieving. I was also crying in joy, It's like it was the tears of relief. Like I kind of like cannot believe how beautiful the path is, and just overwhelmed, a certain kind of gratitude. Ajahn Sujito, one time at a retreat offhandedly just kind of said, like, as our path unfolds, there's more laughter and more tearfulness, kind of weepiness. Teaching, of course, is not a performance, not a performance. We enter the Dharma together as we enter together as children of the Buddha, you know, and yeah, I've become in teaching, practicing too, but I've become like very sensitive to when my words feel like they're sort of bubbling up from my body, and when they don't, when they feel very near, very near. Every word I speak is like my body is right with it. And even though I prepare a lot and have a kind of careful skeletal structure of most talks, I try never to abandon my body. I try never to leave space between my words and my body. And in a sense, to stay with my body, that feels like a way of not leaving you either. The tears, they sort of come at unpredictable times. Sometimes they're kind of some kind of grief. How does one understand anicca, the ungraspability, the changingness of all things? How do you understand that and not cry? How can you know anything about the world, about war or oppression or wealth, inequality or climate, or, how do you know any of that and not cry? Sometimes. And sometimes the tears are kind of like public grieving. And I sort of feel like sometimes for a person of my social location, privilege, sometimes tears are just more powerful than words in expressing sense of solidarity. And but most often, the tears come when I sense a distinction, this very stark distinction, the Buddha's fundamental distinction between suffering and peace. The kind of it's almost like one cloth being held up against another, different shades, and the poignancy of that difference between suffering and goodness, suffering and peace. And there's a phenomena in psychology known as moral elevation, where it's like you witness an act of moral beauty or something, and it inspires, it elevates our own hearts. You know, you see somebody do something really beautiful. It's like, how can we not be sort of lifted up by that? And the sense I have is almost like I don't even need to see a hero, just the actual perception of goodness, even in a vague way, just the perception of goodness in any moment is the experience of moral elevation. It's sort of like, I just want to be better, you know? And and maybe we can say that the kind of the whole of the Dharma is about becoming sensitive to goodness, you know, attuning to it in any moment, taking our cues from it, sensing that in our body, being lifted up by it, the goodness of letting go of non-hate, of not trespassing on the heart of others, the clear, wide openness. Metta, loving kindness, is being moved by your own goodness. You know, the love for others just follows effortlessly from that. And so tears, yeah, a lot of tears, a lot of reasons to be moved, right? And tears are not the last word. 1977 interview with James Baldwin in the New York Times, and said said people people can cry much easier than they can change. A rule of psychology people like me picked up as kids on the street. You know, okay, I take that to heart too, and yeah, so we cry, and our tears direct us back to our body, an embodied sense of feeling, sense of the Dharma here. And then we take our cues from that, live well. So I offer that for your consideration. And I wish you a good week. Well, yeah, see you next time.